Well, welcome everybody to our June 2022 meeting. We've got, a full agenda to go through. Before we read the minutes, I would like to, actually, of course, I'm going off script a little bit. Let me just give it a quick overview of the chairman's report. I did not have anything prepared. Usually I do like a PowerPoint and all that, but I'm going to spare you, death by PowerPoint. I would like to say that I am more than thrilled and just grateful for the opportunity to have served on the Board of Trustees at the Fairfield Public Library. 6 years has gone by really quickly, but it's been 6 years. I mean, it's incredible. I have learned so much. I have learned what it's like to be on a board. I've learned what it's like to go through Robert's rules. I've learned the power and the value of Robert's rules, even though when I first came in, it was like, forget it, I'm not gonna do that. Let's just forget it. I got my own style. It is very helpful. And it creates order. I've learned about the inner workings of town government. I've learned about, working with people outside of your normal job in a nonprofit environment. I've learned the power of developing ideas as a board, working with trustees that are coming in and coming out. And so that's interesting. Whereas in your workplaces, you might have a team that is lasting maybe longer, where there's, a rotation. And I've also learned that, when you're dealing with your regular professional lives and your teams, you've got projects, and you apply a lot of that same to what you do on a board. We all have a mission. We have agendas that we go through. We don't agree on everything, but it's also really important to, work through those. I'm really, really, excited to have had the opportunity to be a chair, because I've learned so much more of being that much closer and getting to know every one of you. That is probably the best part of being a trustee. So I encourage anyone that is on a board and a trustee to be more involved, part of a committee, to be one of the officers, take on a chairmanship, do other things, raise your hand, come up with new ideas. That for me was terrific. Even though the first 4 years as a regular trustee was involved with a number of committees, the last two, and I really appreciate you putting your faith in me and electing me to the chair role. I mean, that was an opportunity that I knew when Sonal came to me and said, well, David, we really think that you'd be great. And I had already made up my mind, like, I really don't know if I can do this, but I think I need to do this. And it really helped me grow personally and professionally. And for that, I am really thankful and grateful. I'll close out by saying that, being part of the board and being in chair, and now seeing Scott and the administration now change over and bring a new sort of, life to the library, we have a vibrant brand in this community. There's a lot of great that's going on. Despite everything that's happened in the world, there's a lot of negative news. But as Jill had said, it's the #1 free content resource in town. And it's also a brand and a resource that I see as still untapped, and that's an opportunity for all of us. There's a lot of engagement in many ways, through programs, through in person, through digital. Those numbers are terrific, but there's still new segments of the population to reach. There are new community members that are moving to town for the first time. There are people that used to engage with a brand that are no longer. So we have an opportunity to engage with them. And we've also, in the last few years, really developed a roadmap and a strategy, and we've embraced drawing down money and spending it responsibly. And look at the library and look what we've done, and we're just getting started. And so I see nothing but the continuation of that plan and the opportunity for the next administration, the next chair, the next trustees that come in to continue that trend and to really, invest in it. And everyone that's here on the board has passion, they're involved, they're committed. And we have not missed a meeting since the pandemic. A lot of it was virtual, but we all stayed all the way through. And for that, I really want to thank everyone for everyone's support, for your time, your service, and I wish you all the very best. We're all connected. We're all residents in town. I consider you all friends. We're not just trustees, but again, thank you very much. And this has just been truly an incredible experience.
Thank you.
That's my PowerPoint. So with my final chairman's report,
Excuse me. I have one thing to add. So, I have a little something for you
okay,
to show you how much we
Oh, that's
appreciate
nice
you,
of you.
and care about you and your
Okay.
dedication. And I personally want to say thank you. You were a great chair. Had a lot of great conversations together, and I've really learned a lot about the board and leadership with you. So appreciate that.
thank you very much.
Well, we'll talk something for you.
I would like to ask a quick favor, is that at the very end, could we get a group picture of the trustees?
Absolutely.
All right, terrific.
I'm going to go around this way so I don't get in the way.
Oh my God, oh, wow. Oh, gosh.
It's a little token of our appreciation.
This is too nice.
Great.
Wow. Okay, it says, to David, thank you for your dedication, service, and friendship to the Fairfield Library and Board of Trustees. Wow, that's beautiful.
It's
Not actually present.
Give me a poke.
Blow up with the black library.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Wow. Personal, it's cute. Look at that. That is a beautiful print. Oh, nice.
It's very nice.
That is terrific. Wow, I'm touched. That is really nice. Thank you all so much. I'll be giving you hugs and high fives and fist bumps afterwards during the group hug. Thank you all very much. That is really, really nice. So great. Wow.
Glad you like that.
Beautiful. Well,
That's great.
that is incredible. How nice of everyone. Well, we can now move on to the agenda. We're going to get back to our good old friend Robert's rules. Wow. Why don't we we'll take a minute and we will read last month's minutes and then we'll take a vote and approve.
One thing up top, on the approval of minutes, we didn't actually approve the minutes for March 7th because it wasn't actually an official meeting. That was the one where we had, you were out, David, Chris was out.
Was that, I think, Peter, you're at
So I don't know if we actually approved anything.
But no, in the March 7 meeting, we still had the meeting. There was nothing that required a vote. So we still kept that meeting. And the vote for those minutes, Andrew, was to vote on the accuracy of what was discussed.
Okay.
Christina, correct?
Yep.
Okay. That's a good point. Andrew, I'll give you Jen. Jen? Thank you. Keep going back on the screen. Thank you so much. Any other changes? Comments? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve it? Chris Rogers? Would anyone like to second? Peter Wilner? All in favor? Approved. Terrific. Okay, we're going to move on to old business. Scott, want to cover an update on the budget process?
So the budget passed,
All right.
really with little pushback. There was some conversation at the finance board meeting after the budget approval where they're really interested in savings that different boards hold on to. So the auditor from the finance department did ask for some clarification about how we spend the board's money. Been radio silence since we provided that information. But we did watch the meeting and we're prepared to either show up at a meeting or be asked about it next year or 10 months from now, not counting down, but 10 months from now when we go before the finance board again.
What kind of questions do they ask
About
how they spend?
under the impression that none of the money was being spent, not understanding that, you know, the town gets money or paying down the bond, just, an overall kind of just, wondering if we just sat on our money. So that's almost a direct quote. So we were pretty clear with the town, and they were receptive to it. Of this is how we spend the money. This is how we use the money. We're not sitting on any of it. We shared the minutes from the, you know, the decision about using, you know, that 2%, I believe it was, every year. So, like I said, it's been radio silence. I don't know. I believe they've had a meeting before we provided them all that information, but no questions been asked since then.
Well, that's great news. It's approved. Thank you for everyone's effort through the whole process. New fiscal starts soon. It's all great to hear.
And we've already started with the process of hiring the part-time position we were given.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott. Anything else on the budget?
No, 10 months.
Okay. There's a good one. All right. We'll move on to the revision recommendations to the town charter. Scott, while I pull up the document, do you want to give an update of what happened at the last meeting and what you presented?
So, while I was out, thank God the meeting was virtual. I got asked to go to the rechartering commission. Luckily, it ran late, so David was able to join me. And it was really, I mean, overall, what I expect them to have an issue with was not an issue. The big question was going from the size of the board to they were in consensus, we're not going to change the size of the board. And then going from the 3 to 6 years, they just had questions about it, but they were relatively understanding. So it was really, even though it's it was odd because powers and duties of the library trustees, they thought we were giving the library board more power, and I had to explain to them that we were really giving you all less power. And there's some confusion about whether or not the board should write policy, which I was very clear with this one individual, that that's really your job. It's finance and policy and me. So overall, like I said, it was very well received. How do you feel?
Yeah, I got the sense that the committee was, supportive of, our recommended changes. There were some in the beginning about the amount of members where, divisible by 3 and the source of that. I think it makes sense that, 6 is a good number. And we had thought, I think for a while, maybe like a year ago or even longer, that, more is better. Like, hey, like Pequot's got 20, like, hey, we should have like more. Well, more may not really be better. We operate pretty well with 6. With 9, which is a 50% increase, that's, 3 additional trustees to manage. What would their role be? I think that 6 is a good number. Any comments or questions?
I think the only thing that we talked about last meeting that behind moving to 9 rather than 6 was that idea of more standing committees as opposed to ad hoc, where you're almost rotating a cast of 3 for like operations, finance, and said operation. I'm channeling my Rick Perry. There's a third one.
Like facilities and building.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
private facilities, something like that. But that was the only thing. I think the idea of having some institutional knowledge as we transition for people that are on, whether it's, you know, treasurer or, space planning, something like that, to have more of those standing committees.
Yeah.
But I think we've seen this with the search for the newest trustee, that it would not be easiest necessarily to build the board up to
Yeah.
the 9, and then I still think the idea of standing committees is not a bad one, even if it's committees of 2.
Maybe an idea would be is to take a look at the way the committees are structured, because I think they've been a little ad hoc. I don't think that we really had too much of a formal sort of committee
Correct.
structure, and they sort of like grew organically. So maybe as, the board to look at, let's discuss which committees we feel are important as standing committees,
Yeah,
make some assignments, and then put some structure to what do these committees do? What's their goal?
yeah, I think there's things that, a lot falls on Chris for treasurer stuff, so if there's even another person to help with
Yeah.
that stuff. Those kind of things that, not everybody needs that, but
Yeah.
that was the only thing that I kind of recall from that I did just want to mention.
Yeah.
But I think, as we see, 6 is probably what we can handle right now.
So where does this go next? Because Brenda did write up something in the town reports about the.
So it's a whole hearing for the treasurer.
Yeah, there's a public hearing. Is
stuff.
that taking place?
Yeah, they did public hearings. I just went to the public hearing
Yeah, that was on Thursday. wasn't it?
Thursday.
Okay.
I was there for about an hour because I had to do something before it, and then I decided that like 8:30, 9 o'clock to max out public meetings. And nothing about us was brought up. It's
Okay.
about, there's a concern about some aspects about number of RTM members and also minority representation.
Mm-hmm.
So that really is fun. I actually spoke with Brenda at an event, and afterwards we talked, and she said it's, it's a small component.
Yeah.
But, no one really seems to have.
Much more energy going to that issue.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of, for the departments, it's really about modernizing,
Right.
which is
Yeah,
really what we're doing here.
that's correct.
So,
Now, there are there are about 4 main components in terms of the recommendations that we're making in the charter. I think we've shared with this version with you all, and the first one is we talked about is the number of trustees. Number 2 is the term. We'll come back to that in a minute. Number 3 are basically the powers and duties that modernizes it, as Scott had mentioned. You and Jan, I think, did a great job editing that. The last section is in regards to the use of the funds. And we created language that was just very easy to understand. Some of the language in there was, last century, literally. So coming back to the second one, or are we okay with the number of trustees staying at 6? Okay.
Yep.
The term, so the term is 6. 6 is a long time. So I think 2 things is it's the commitment and also the way to attract new trustees. Our recommendation was to reduce that to 3 years with the option to take on a second 3-year term with a vote by the board. So if you serve 3 years, if you love doing it and you are wanting to extend that, the board would vote on that and you extend it for another 3 years. Or wait, sorry, for 1 more year. Is that correct, Scott?
No, one more,
3 term.
one more 3-year term. Basically taking our existing ones, breaking it up with the idea that if somebody is paying, we can vote them out.
Yeah. So would that make sense?
Really for doing it.
Chris, we wanted to address this with you since you couldn't make it last time, so we were all here. So we talked about the number of trustees. Now the term, does that make sense for us? 3 plus another 3? Or should it be 3 plus 1?
No, I think 3 plus 3.
I think 3 works. 3 plus 1, there's no point.
Good point.
You're
There
creating
you
a
go.
term.
Yeah. Okay.
So another question with that, because we obviously are all currently on 6-year terms.
Yeah, how do you?
That was my next question.
Well,
Yeah.
then, because technically, Jill, in your second, third year term is coming up.
Yes.
Christine, you're really not here.
No,
Yeah.
Chris would be on his second year of his third year, and it would technically be my final year, my first term
Mhm.
with this change. Just so we're clear, like that, is that what?
That's a really good point.
Where did you, when were you, but did you come on in for a 6-year term?
There you go.
And
Yeah,
it's the,
you're right.
that's
So I
what I
think
think.
that's what I just want to make sure that,
Yeah, any new person.
so our new trustee, are they coming in for a 6-year or a
They're
3-year?
coming, they're still coming
Yeah.
in for
They would be-
6-year
they would
because
be
this
brought in
has
for
not,
6-year.
yeah.
Okay, 'cause it's-
They would be, and I did address that, and we'll talk
Right.
about the interviews in a moment, I did address that with all the candidates, saying it is currently 6.
Yeah.
We have a recommendation into the town charter. There's no decisions made yet.
Gotcha.
Did they express an opinion one way or another?
You know, I did get the sense that they're like, wow, 6, that's a long time. But
They were very
that,
supportive.
it did not sway their interest at all in terms of wanting to be part of the board. If our recommendations,
Attention please, the library will be closing in 30 minutes. If
If-
you need a library card
if our
or
recommendations get approved
come to the
by the
circulation
town
desk.
charter committee,
Just a reminder, the library will shut down.
so
at
as a board,
7:45.
do those go into effect for all current members or for the new members coming in,
That's what we just.
going forward?
Yeah, we all were brought on with a specific term.
With the,
So,
with the old
you know,
charter?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, so like Christina serving until June 30th, 2023. That's still, the term doesn't change.
what about the new trustee coming in, if the, you know,
It's not, and it won't be put in place in time, so it'll be for our, whoever replaces. Sorry, Christina, you're just the next one out, so
I know, it's.
Okay.
you're my,
that is,
in fiscal year 24.
yeah, so that is an important distinction. It's good to know that.
But we're not, so
Beautiful.
does that line up, so the next person's on for 3 years and then 2 people come off at the same time?
So technically, I would be coming off with a new person. Or no, Jill would, wait.
This is my 4th year. I'm going into my 4th, isn't it?
No, is this, next year is the beginning, the end of your first, technically your first term under.
My first 3-year term technically.
Right, so then whoever goes in next year
Me
would be lined up
coming
with
off at the
you.
Same time as me, yeah.
That's the problem.
But
So
I'm not, I think one of the things we also added in here was 2 consecutive terms. No person who's term served 2 full consecutive 3-year term as a trustee. So I think that would still remove me from, running. I'm not gonna be taking another 3 years, but yeah, I think we would technically possibly need to do that. That would be the case for myself and Peter as our terms lapse. But other than that, then it would go into a 3-year, and we would have certain instances where it will change. It may be up to 2, but we're hoping that people will renew.
Yeah, there will be some years, and also because some people will choose to renew and some will not.
Right.
Yes,
This just makes it random. Some years it'll be 2 people and some years. it'll
yep,
be-
and that's where we have it, where it's listed as up to 2.
But the question is, do we think this makes the role more marketable?
I think so.
I mean, I think so too.
We've all said this, I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of 6 years.
Yeah.
We had to, I'm sure there are some people who said, not gonna happen. So,
That's
I think
your,
the
your
third-
kids from most of middle school and all of high school.
That's a good point.
I,
I can't-
That's the way I think of it,
Even
too.
with
I
a
think of it
kindergarten.
that way in college tuition, so.
so it's,
Yeah.
It'll line me up just in time to get out of state, so I can go to nice, like Texas or something like that, so I can send my kids to state school.
Or Florida.
Should you have verbiage at the beginning of it that says effective after whatever date this is probably gonna, like,
well, the charter,
effective
the
with
charter.
next year's.
Yeah, they'll be boilerplate, stuff will change throughout the charter.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if looking back on it, don't you think it would be good to have that historical record of when that change was made as well?
I think the town, will.
Well,
Yeah, and if,
can believe in using years. Look at documents, nothing ever has a year on it.
Those are very good questions, and if the committee votes, when are they scheduled to vote in September?
I think so.
I can't remember when the last charter had gone into effect, but it would make sense that it goes into effect at the beginning of the next year. I don't know. We'll have to look into that, but we may want to consider, or the board should consider language in there in terms of when that goes into effect.
Do voters vote on it, or does the Board of Selectmen vote on it? Or RTM, or
I
some
think it's a
other?
referendum, isn't it?
It's gonna be on the 22 ballot, the November ballot.
So they'll,
Ah, there you go.
we recommend
That's correct.
these changes.
Right.
But is it each item, or is it a whole
So
document?
it will vote to approve the charter as recommended.
Yeah, yeah. So if that's the case, then it would probably make sense that it does go into effect January 1st.
Mhm.
So then as a board, do we want to take a vote in terms of our recommendations, in terms of
We should.
number of trustees, term length, the duties of the board, as well as the treatment of the funds?
We should.
So with our recommended changes, would anyone like to make a motion? Were there any other
Okay.
questions?
We went through the first two, can we go through 3 and 4?
Sure.
But also I just want to make sure we're clear that if this is the proposed ones, do state 9
Right.
there. If you just want to remove that first, that first edit,
Which one?
that one. See where you've crossed out 6 with 9.
Yes,
Yeah.
reject your insertion.
Oh, okay.
Reject. Yep.
Okay, so here are the number,
Jesus.
there's the term. And then here are the additional duties here. Here. Scott, do you want to narrate some of the overall changes here?
A lot of this is just from the Divisional Library Development Handbook. So identify and adopt written policies to govern operation and program in a library, which is pretty much what we do every month. And, my hope is to introduce a policy every month, just for review, if not for revision. It's really the basics. It's policy, finance. This one is not from the state handbook. But it's important for it to be over there, which it's your duty to hand over revenue generating services to the town treasurer. A performance appraisal of the town librarian. Strategic plan with implementation, evaluation. And then, can you scroll down just a little bit? 'Cause I
Yeah.
don't remember if I changed the language or we just struck it.
Yeah, we just.
Yeah, I think you used
So
to.
we just struck it because this is, if anybody's been paying attention to libraries on a national level, and now and there's a new thing that's about to be banned. But this would make it so that no one could join the board with the idea of they could select what books are on the shelves or what programs can be.
That makes sense. Hey, going back to number 4, so from revenue generating services, now I understand it's all lowercase, so it's not defined. Was there a question, obviously it doesn't sound like they really care about this, but do we want to make an attempt to try to define revenue generating services or leave it completely open like
I
that?
would leave it completely open because then the hamstrings. So, what if we decide that we want to go find free, but, we're gonna start charging for notary services. This actually reflects practice right now much better than what we actually do.
Okay.
Because we hand over the money for the room rentals, hand over money for.
Okay, so this is specifically related to our operations of
Yeah.
the library itself.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay. Because I'm more concerned about that from the board and the way we manage our,
That's in the final paragraph.
okay.
So this is really just when we charge per pen.
Yeah, that's fine. That part I'm not as concerned about. I'm concerned more about essentially the ability of the town to,
Take our money.
yeah.
I've always had a concern about the state money that we get from, the state grant and, borrow it program or other libraries, other towns, users can borrow our materials and then we get compensated to the state. Well, the library director has to sign a paper that says these funds did not go into the general fund. We use them for the library. And that's kind of always been a concern of mine, but I guess you could technically say that those are not revenue generating services and argue that we should have that money directly.
Yep.
Okay, so these were the duties, and then in the end here is, I don't think there was no change on private donations, but the management of the funds was to change and strike out the sentence, which was a little confusing. And then to add in something that's a revision, that's just a little bit more straightforward in terms of what we're doing with principal and what that is to be used for. Any questions on this last section?
I like the part about the operational budgeting purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put that in.
Just to be very clear,
I like it.
just in case there was any confusion.
So are we proposing adding the words dividend, at least quarterly, to the town treasurer to be expended? Because right now, the way it's currently structured, we don't necessarily get dividends. They roll back in and get reinvested into whatever
Right.
our allocations are.
I think we should do an analysis to see if those dividends would be more or less than what we're currently paying down on our bond. We have that agreement to pay down the bond, so it's X amount of payments every,
There's only 1 year left.
yeah, that's what, but we want to clarify, because that's been overriding, that agreement has been overriding this language.
No, I agree with you, but the way we would,
Well, I don't think we got any dividends this year, so.
no, we haven't, because they've been reinvested back in.
Right, so how
our
does that-
allocations. That's what I'm saying, like, I don't want to be in negative compliance
Yeah,
with this thing.
So you think dividends should be taken out?
Look, my main concern is when I look at that, she'll transfer the gross income at least quarterly to the town treasurer to be expended by the town for capital improvements. Fine, I get what you're trying to say. You're saying, all right, we're gonna use that for money that we borrow from the town in order to write it down. That makes sense. I like that. What do we do? Because that basically locks us into, again, we're not defining gross income, right? In terms of.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's, in my mind, I look at it and it's great. It says what you want it to say. But in the event that there's an issue, does it say what we want it to say? Right? And that's my main thing. Personally, what I would like to be able to do is any revenue or anything that gets generated from our endowment, I want to be able to get reinvested back into the endowment itself, so that we can then utilize it for projects that benefit
Right.
the library based on our choices.
But isn't the debt repayment also hinged on the dividends that are?
Technically, it's not. That was a
Okay.
side agreement that was made
Okay.
like way back when. And it allowed us to use those dividends to reduce the amount of money that we technically owe for the town.
Okay.
Right? But technically, my understanding of the way it was written previously was we should have been giving those dividends to them anyway, and then we cut the check for 120K.
Right.
Right? So I like the arrangement where, yes, we can use the dividends to write down any capital expenditures, but after our repayment ends next year, we don't have, as far as I know, we don't have any money that we're borrowing from the town or any money that we need to repay.
Right.
So if that's the case, and we have this in there, then it behooves us to go to the town and say, all right, what capital improvements can we do? So we can then utilize our dividends for that, so we don't have to pay the town any form
Right,
of dividends
okay.
going forward.
So that's a good point. This beginning part of this section probably needs to be adjusted.
In my mind, it does, because it basically says.
glad you brought
give
that up.
Dividends to the town.
We-
And if
we
there's no
didn't-
capital improvements, what do we
We're
do?
really focusing on the lower, half of this to be a little more clear, but thank you, as the treasurer speaking out, that really makes a lot of sense.
Well, wouldn't you then just have a segment to the document covering the endowment? That how we treat the income from the endowment?
But that's what we're trying to outline here within the town charter.
I know, but we're not using the term endowment at all. We're not saying,
Well, it's funds.
well, it's a separate it's a separate amount of money that we carry over from year to year.
We don't have a document that's dedicated to the endowment that
We
outlines.
do not have a fund for the endowment. Where's the endowment held?
Well, no, the endowment is made up of multiple funds that are housed within Vanguard. But we don't have an endowment charter. Was that what you were asking?
You could, yeah, you don't need an endowment charter.
Okay.
I'm not a lawyer, but I doubt you do. But organizations, other organizations I've been affiliated with, they have endowments and they have income coming from those endowments.
Yeah.
But the endowment is sacred. It's not something you dip into. Now we may want to call it a fund balance, but I think the concern is the town could say, you earned 5% on the money on this fund balance that we have.
Yeah.
We want it.
Mhm.
What do we do? What do we say?
That it's reinvested
It
back in.
sounds to me, maybe I don't understand it, but it sounds to me like your funds will never grow. If you have $7 million, you're always gonna have $7 million because any gross income on that goes to the town.
Well, and that's my other side concern. Thank you for bringing that up, because that's technically the way, again, explained to me, is they have the right to grab that incremental amount of money that we gained due to the fact that we've just invested.
Right. And that's why we're taking the chance to make these updates so we can be very clear because of the board's duty to protect the endowment. So
My concern would be if we change the language that drastically from the original language, they may then.
start poking around or asking more questions that,
But that being said, if I listen to what you're saying and indirectly what we've been hearing, just in terms of the questions we've been asked over the
Yeah.
last 18 to 24 months,
yeah.
they're already looking at it.
Yes.
Hey, here's an idea. Who's the general counsel that was on part of that meeting? Who's the town lawyer?
I'd have to go through
Okay.
I have
He might be the right person to consult with about this.
Okay.
Hey, we had a board meeting and that there is some language in here that we actually want to consider amending a little bit.
yeah, because I'll be honest, right now, like, I'm a big proponent of, if this is our concern,
That won World War II. We've reached out to the senior center, and
Lori, are you back with us?
Hello?
Sorry about
Yes,
that.
I just,
We got kicked off Wi-Fi. Thank you, Andrew, for your iPhone. Okay. All right. So we're deciding on the charter. We're not
Let's just keep flipping back.
do minor changes and then we'll look at it for next month. Okay, great.
okay, great.
Sorry, Lori, any questions?
Nope, I got that. Your recap was perfect. Thanks.
Okay, great. All right, we are going to move on to library updates. Scott and Jan.
Sure. So, in May, the library hosted a Birds and Bees program for elementary aged children and parents virtually and in person. It was very popular. Circulations just keep flipping back and forth. And the library does not plan any reduction in services at this time. Hand it over to Jan for looking ahead.
so there's a lot going on, summer reading.
Very excited about. I think there's a training on Monday. In May, the library participated in the bike rodeo, highlighting the branch's circulation of locks and pumps. Staff purchased an add-on to the Medici.tv. It's a streaming service, and now patrons have access to the jazz collection with over 300 performances. The Palace app, which we talked about last meeting, which is an app provided by the state. Let's just keep flipping. We're currently testing it. Staff are testing it out. There are some things that are missing and Libby is not connecting to it. So we're not going to do a full launch until Overdrive has completely connected to it. There were 2 incidents in Let's just keep flipping back and forth. And the library does not plan any reduction in services at this time. hand it over to Jan for looking ahead.
So there's a lot going on, summer reading.
This time of year, the library will be closed on Sundays for the summer. The library's begun to enforce a new no food policy. Lack of enforcement was causing issues for staff. We started seeing insects and mice everywhere. There was a handful of staff out with COVID in May. CDC marks Fairfield County is high, but we're back to yellow again as of Thursday, so the signs just keep flipping back and forth. And the library does not plan any reduction in services at this time. Hand it over to Jan for looking ahead.
So there's a lot going on. Summer reading is beginning this month. All departments are involved in that. I gave you each a calendar so you can look through some of the other things that are going on. As Christine mentioned before, we are very busy. There's an awful lot going on here. In addition to our regular book clubs and mahjong and chess club and all that, we have a couple of tech classes. We seem to have found someone who's doing tech classes for us. We've been looking for someone for a long time. Those are all in person. We have a book discussion this Wednesday. The local author on, it's called The Partnership, George Marshall, Henry Stimson, and the Extraordinary Collaboration That Won World War II. We've reached out to the Senior Center and various military groups in town, VFW, American Legion. So hopefully we'll get some people in for that. The virtual program's still doing very well, getting lots of attendance. We have the voting rights program coming up with legal and voters, and Carol Fitzgerald, who is kind of a new book guru. We've had her a number of times, and she'll be doing her book report for summer reading on June 14th. Lots of maker programs going on at all levels, and we're also going to participate in the Make Music Fairfield. So we've got some performances going on outside the building on June 21st. Mostly in the afternoon and evening, I think. We had at least 3 things booked as of last week.
Can you tell us a little bit about the SEPTA thing and the de-escalation room? I thought that was really interesting to hear.
So SEPTA is
The chair for that room by then.
Have your attention, please.
As well as the ice cream social with that.
The library will be open tomorrow from 9 to 8.
And it was also, I
Thank you.
don't know where, if it was in here, but it was incredible.
excited about when we were talking, some of the things we were planning on doing. So we have a space in the building, which we've been kind of trying to figure out what to do with, in the children's room. And so we believe the plan is to make that a de-escalation space that can be used. Love the idea.
And there is a day planned coming up in towards the end of June, I think, with SEPTA providing tours and welcoming them into the library. We're hoping to have the chair for that room by then.
Have your attention, please.
As well as the ice cream social with that.
The library will be open tomorrow from 9 to 8.
And it was also,
Thank you.
I don't know where, if it was in here, but it was incredibly impressive to see it.
I was putting it in with the dementia friendly, but,
Yeah.
okay, so stay tuned for next month.
Good to hear. Thank you so much, Nancy. That's great. All right, wonderful. We are going to move on to space planning.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, no, that's-
see it out there
that's
on
huge.
social media big time.
Yeah, and then you hit the schools too, like my son, my
Yeah.
5th grader came back and was a whole bunch of things he wanted to sign up for, so
That's
That's
that's huge,
great.
that's great.
Congratulations. That's really,
Yeah, good stuff.
it's just incredible. Wonderful.
Can I start some?
Of course.
So we just recently got our memory kits in for the dementia friendly. So we're putting them together. We're trying to find the optimum. I was putting backpack so that they can, things be put in there. And we also just recently purchased Brain HQ.
That's supposed to be.
The date.
I didn't have anything to say, so. I was putting it in with the dementia friendly, but, so, okay, so stay tuned for next month.
Good to hear. Thank you so much, Nancy. That's great. All right, wonderful. We are going to move on to space planning. Andrew?
Yes, latest we have is that, unless there's any new news, Jan, the delivery is supposed to happen either this week or next, which would be great. We did get you got the replacements for the broken chairs, correct? Fantastic. And some apparently other random parts.
We've got a couple chair arms that we.
Wow.
Make your chair.
Yeah, exactly. So once we get the bucket, you'll confirm the invoice and Chris and I already spoken about that. Great, the numbers, just making sure timing wise. But yeah, other than that, then we'll look to see what we need to finalize for, final bucket ordering. And then on to the next thing.
Very good.
Jan, anything else you want to add color wise?
That's it.
Cool.
Pretty exciting.
Congratulations. Great job on all that.
That is space planning.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, we're gonna move on to fundraising. Peter, yeah, I know we talked a little bit.
Yeah, we haven't gotten it, let's say.
Not yet, but it's coming.
So I reached out to Danielle again, or once things get settled out with the friends, we're gonna have a meeting with board members and friends to talk about it. Uniform approach. I don't know if Danielle,
No, I didn't hear that.
Okay.
I think
if you were in the room, I would say the board's working on some stuff. Some stuff's getting worked on, so that's why things are taking a while.
There's a lot of opportunity and it makes sense to have the right alignment. And
So that's kind of where we're at. So I think the next thing is just to start to put our thoughts around the next phase of what's coming in and when we need to pay for it.
And it turned out to be not very well attended.
Foundations would be, you need to prepare proposals now because many of them meet in December and January. And you want to get in, if we're going to do it, we've got to get into that cycle. So that's something that we should keep in mind. So the sooner the better.
Peter, when you and I first started talking about this, one thing you raised that I think is a really important point that the board thinking about and adding to an agenda and discussing is for what purpose? And when you submit the grants is what are we going for versus, just looking for money? So looking at our strategic plan and our roadmap, what are the
So that's kind of where we're at. So I think the next thing is just to start to put our thoughts around the next phase of what's coming in and when we need to pay for it.
And it turned out to be not very well attended.
Capital improvement if you're relating it to programming.
right?
The foundations these days are not happy with what they would call bricks and mortar type of discussions.
Yep.
But if we were, let's say, opening up a program to make early childhood special needs
Right.
program, and consequently, along with that, we need special for the kids. That would
Special staff training,
special staff.
special
training,
equipment for it.
Special equipment.
Yeah.
If we're bringing in a consultant to work with us, those types of things. But
So that's kind of where we're at. So I think the next thing is just to start to put our thoughts around the next phase of what's coming in and when we need to pay for it.
And it turned out to be not very well attended.
that's where you focus in on. I use the example, I think I was telling Scott, maybe somebody else, the Palm Beach Library, and it's not a new idea, but they have a dog that they bring in for
Oh, yeah.
the kids to come in, and it's for reading, and they read to the dog. And the Mandel Foundation just loved this idea. I mean, they went out and dog, they pay for the dog's annual upkeep, the veterinary, and all they just love this thing. I don't think the town of Fairfield's gonna fund a dog.
But it's an example that it's beyond.
So that's kind of where we're at. So I think the next thing is just to start to put our thoughts around the next phase of what's coming in
Mhm.
and when we need to pay for it.
And it turned out to be not very well attended.
So we should do that. And I recognize, we all recognize people are busy and he got sick.
All right. Thank you, Peter. We're going to move on to Treasurer's Report, Chris Rogers. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over.
Scott.
Finance. Finance and Budget, Scott?
Finance and budget, we're pretty much in line with what our spending needs to be.
So-
Next meeting, we'll be preparing the town budget quarterly report on the Q4,
Great.
as we do for the auditor.
Okay, terrific. Now we can move on to Treasurer's Report,
Treasurer's
Chris.
report, so that's kind of where we're at. So I think the next thing is just to start to put our thoughts around the next phase of what's coming in
Mhm.
and when we need to pay for it.
And it turned out to be not very well attended.
Towards the end of the month. So we're down 12% year to date. The S&P is down 14% year to date. The reason why I bring that up is historically, that's how we invested our funds. We subsequently switched. We've got a slightly more balanced approach. 60% in equity, 40% in debt. Unfortunately, the debt market's also going to correct pretty hard. So, there's no rest for the weary. That being said, the Vanguard folks, I sent around earlier today, they sent in kind of like an overview of what their view, or some thoughts on like the volatility that they recommend doing. I included that on the second page, but more or less so that's kind of where we're at. So I think the next thing is just to start to put our thoughts around the next phase of what's coming in
Mhm.
and when we need to pay for it.
And it turned out to be not very well attended.
Which Andrew and Van just spoke about. That's gonna be about $107,000 that we need to write a check for. There's another check going out the door for the damaged materials that arrives, that's about $8K. And then we also do have our debt obligation payment that's coming up, so that's another $100,000.
Just to clarify though, on the 8K, that is a holdback that we had done in the original
Yes,
first one, so it's not additional,
Yeah.
it's not additional money, it is holdback from the original.
it's good clarification. So that's kind of where we're at. So I think the next thing is just to start to put our thoughts around the next phase of what's coming in
Mhm.
and when we need to pay for it.
And it turned out to be not very well attended. We think, busy with graduation and all that kind of thing. So we're looking at adding more of them, but May is probably not anything, but sort of treating it as programming and giving her a stipend to put on X number of shows. I'll make it quick. We funded the museum passes, which we're so happy those are back. That program had been shut down during COVID. We had our mini golf, and we actually came within $100 of what we made in 2019, which was
Wow.
bizarre. So close. Yeah. So that was good to see the library full of little golfers again. In May, we did a Sound Waves concert, which was new for us. We don't typically do one in May. And it turned out to be not very well attended. We think, busy with graduation and all that kind of thing. So we're looking at adding more of them, but May is probably not the month to do it. But we did also have the COVID spike, as we all know, in May, so that could have also impacted it. We had our literary luncheon. Jennifer Weiner was our speaker. She was great. We had only 100 people, which really 150 to 180 is more ideal for us. But again, with COVID for this year, 100 was perfect. And the last thing is the art gallery. Our next show is going to be June 10th. And I'll pass this around. You guys want to take a look? Postcard for the next show.
I walked through the other day. I love the artwork done there, a lot of the sailing and ocean.
Yeah, we're in
Right.
talks with the woman who has been working tirelessly on the gallery for years, working out some sort of stipend situation for her because it's kind of a full-time job.
Yeah.
So just figuring out, how that looks and what we're thinking of doing. It's still all finalizing everything, but sort of treating it as programming and giving her a stipend to put on X number of shows.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Our
Hello?
first one. Lori, can you hear
Hello?
us?
Now I
Lori?
can, yeah, I lost it for a couple minutes.
Sorry, we cut in and out. We're back now.
Okay,
We just finished the update from Jackie. The Friends now are moving to new business.
David.
okay,
this is-
perfect.
Yeah, it should go on that.
You want to check it like that, not my phone.
How did it go back on?
It shut. To move the time, but then it was
Okay.
gonna be in 15.
All right, we're connected back on the Wi-Fi. Jackie, or excuse me, Lori, can you still hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Now we're back in the library Wi-Fi. Andrew, thank you for that tethering. Okay, great. So we are going to go to new business. Scott has the first one for facilities use policy.
So one policy this library does not have is a facilities use policy. We have a lot of rules and procedures, but nothing that's actually been approved by the board. So this is an overview of all the ways you can use our facilities, whether or not it's just coming to the library to sit at a desk or at a table, where this is a little bit different than some policies you'll see. Study room, meeting room use, meeting room rental. That's pretty much either boilerplate language that's been used in other policies, or how we're already doing things without a policy being in there. The only thing that's really changed, that's a little different than other libraries' policies, is we actually do a public space and furniture policy, which is something that I think every library should have, which really kind of just lays out, we provide chairs and tables for you to do that. We don't tell you what you can do at those, at those tables, but don't move the furniture around, don't set up an encampment, which are all things that happen in public libraries.
Yeah.
Be careful of your equipment. We're not responsible for your equipment. The other thing that this paragraph does, it replaces a policy called the bag policy, which is a really odd policy, that I'd like to see us get rid of or replace with this, because it could open us up to some bad publicity, but also could maybe open us up to some litigation as well. Which really is strange the way it's written. It's pretty much about how many bags you're allowed in the building and a specific size. It's just very specific for a policy, but also the way it reads doesn't read really. I'm not comfortable with enforcing that policy, and I think the board should be comfortable with having the existence of that policy. And that's it. This is the draft. It's yet to be reviewed by the town, but I wanted to at least get it in front of the board so that you all are looking at it and we're having this conversation. But it codifies things we've already been doing with meeting rooms, meeting room rentals, including the setups, endorsements, which I love that part of the policy. It also stipulates the only people allowed to charge money in the library is either the library itself or the Friends. And it outlines kind of the consequences of policy violation. The last thing I didn't bring up is it also designates zones, which is something the library's done in the past. And it happens a lot in academic libraries, but public libraries are starting to borrow from it. Where it just says that, we have the right from the board to simplify some areas of the library. People can talk in, but other parts of the library, people really need to be quiet and have a more traditional library experience. Like our periodical space, I think, is a really good example. It's a no phone zone.
That makes a lot of sense.
Does this give you the right to ask people to leave or not?
Yes. It gives us the ability to tell people they can no longer use the space. And then if they refuse to comply, then that falls into our behavior policy or code of conduct, then we can ask.
And Scott, does this replace an existing or there was no in
There
place?
was no existing policies that I can find. We're also discovering policies, like we found a policy from 1998,
Yeah,
which hadn't been looked at by the board in some time.
yeah,
I don't believe there's a meeting room policy or study room policy.
okay.
Like I said, the only thing that's closest is the bag policy.
So this is consolidating all those into the facilities
Yeah,
policy, okay.
I'm a big fan of plans that have sections that speak to things instead of multiple small policies.
So once that's reviewed by the town, you come back to the board for a vote, is your vision that it would be the comprehensive facilities policy that also removes the bag policy that might be
Yes.
referenced in there? Okay, that's great. That makes a lot of sense.
The,
Consolidation.
looks like the public space and furniture part of that addresses what's a rather pointedly written policy.
Thank you for putting it that way. Yes.
Great. Any other questions for Scott about the policies? Great, thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna move on to a few sections we're gonna be voting on. The first one up is the new trustee seat. So with my term ending in June, that opens up a trustee seat to bring it back to 6. And thank you to Peter and Christina that helped me out with the steering committee of interviewing a few candidates. We had 2 candidates that we interviewed. I did first share the notes with you all, and then Peter and Christina did a joint, I think, Zoom call for both candidates. And we did come to consensus that we would like to present a candidate to you all. And so the candidate that we would like to present as our next trustee is Aaron Harrigan. We're very pleased with Aaron's presence, experience, demeanor, personality. We think that Aaron would make an excellent fit as a trustee, has great financial experience, working as treasurer, working in finance, working with boards. And our recommendation as a board is to present Aaron as our next trustee. Are there any questions, any feedback, any concerns?
I think all of us, right, when you go to apply to be a trustee, right, the town has requirements that they want you to fill out paperwork. Did she actually have, because I looked in the file, she sounds terrific.
Yep.
Did she actually put something in there about why she wants to be a trustee? I saw some of your personal notes. I was just wondering.
Well, I mean, I think like all the trustees, and specifically for Aaron, was really to be, a bigger part of the community. But I don't think that there was something that was specific to an application. I'm not familiar with like an application that had to be filled out.
Because when I applied, I had to work with Mike's,
I think after the,
Kaplan.
yeah, I think it's after the board votes. I believe that's when you have to do, no?
I had to fill that out.
Because I had to enter it.
That's not been presented to us,
I had to fill
from
that, I had to
Brenda's
fill that out to be considered,
administration.
because I reached out, because I was on another committee, another
Okay.
commission, the land commission, and I said, oh, I'm a library
Well-
person, I gotta use the library.
But yes, I mean, she wanted to give back to the town.
Yeah.
She was, I mean, loves the library, so.
Yep, as the young children that, use the library a lot. And then Jill, also to address what you're saying is that the town does make the final appointment. So there is that, process.
Well, she went to Fairfield University.
Yeah.
Yep.
She did bill.
She's certainly committed to this community. She works for Foundation Source, which is an interesting organization. They manage family foundations. Manage them in the sense of taking care of their money, making certain that it's spent appropriately and then audited appropriately to the nonprofits that they award, nonprofits and universities and hospitals that money is awarded to. So certainly, she's highly, and she's young. I sit here and I look at everybody in you. But she's young. But I think Christina will agree with me that the other candidate also was really very special. She would have, if we would have had 2 openings, it would have been nice.
That's correct. And what I'm going to do is, after we take this vote, I'm going to communicate to all the candidates and let them know of the Friends organization and also that there are seats that come up every year. So, a no today does not mean a no tomorrow. So I will communicate that. And, Jackie, I would like to connect with you and Leanne about what type of openings might be, existing on the board because, we'd like to maybe present some candidates because if there are some people that are very interested in wanting to be part of the library, there are other, avenues outside of the trustees. Great. Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion if there are not any other questions or concerns? A motion to approve Aaron as our next trustee.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Chris Rogers, first motion. Anyone like to second that? Christina? All in favor? All right, approved. Aaron, you are our next trustee. Congratulations.
Come on down.
All right, great.
Let's get that scarlet letter out here.
Term.
I'll communicate that to her tomorrow. And to our,
Is it all right that I reach out to her and just get her some onboarding stuff, like the trustee handbook?
yeah, but there's,
You're waiting for the
after the town appointment.
Yeah.
So that has to be
Not
official.
official.
That has to be, and that's at a meet, well, are we doing in-person meetings? I mean, in terms of, when 5 years ago, I went to the town meeting, the in-person meeting, and then there were other members of the board who were there. Okay, yeah.
I'll find that out. That's a great
That
question.
would be a nice thing.
It's
Yeah.
not
I think-
Yeah, you're happy to do it.
What, it was, what town meeting
They were
was
gonna
it?
relocate.
It's the monthly board of selectmen. meeting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
selecting me.
Yeah.
It's like member.
I don't know if that's still happening.
I was still under COVID.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'll connect with,
Because I think
Brenda's office tomorrow.
it was really nice.
I've been in those meetings with three of them.
So it-
So, so.
Yeah.
Like, it is, like,
Okay,
like,
Let's get them a train.
Okay, we have got one more item on the new business list here is the annual executive slate. So we need to review and take the nominations and vote on 3 positions, chair, secretary, and treasurer. So the way that I believe that this will work is that for each position is that we as a board nominate those that we would like to recommend as the next person in that position. Take a motion, second, and vote on that. Now, for these positions, I believe according to our not the charter, to our, sorry, completely senior moment. What's our bylaws? Our bylaws, that it's a 2-year assignment. Is that correct?
No,
One
No,
year.
it's
one year.
Yeah, we've done this every.
Yeah.
It's 1 year.
Then you have the.
I read it as 2 years.
What if that makes sense?
It's been a long day. Okay, so the,
Some of us.
It's, we're always up for it.
I remember we re-voted you guys.
correct, it is 1 year. It's every year. It's been a long day.
Don't worry, you can
Okay.
you can go back and spread it out.
We didn't tell you differently.
I know, right? Okay, so I've talked with all of you. We've had discussions about this. I think it's no secret that our recommendation for the chair, the next chair is Andrew. Any comments, any concerns?
I want to see a feat of strength.
As long as I can go with the area of grievance.
Festivus.
A lot of problems with you people, and you're gonna hear them.
It's a great holiday.
Yeah.
Well, no, dude, quite an honor, and, if that is the will of the board, then I appreciate that and happily accept.
Very well.
Let's take a vote.
Yes.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion.
Chris, would someone like to second?
A second.
Jill, who would like to approve? That was all in favor, sorry, all in favor. And we have approved. Andrew, congratulations, you're the next chair.
Great. I'll say thank you.
As I said in my opening remarks, it was something that I, didn't think that I'd be able to do or that it would be too much. It was a little extra work, but it was something I'm really glad that I did. So congratulations.
Thank you, David.
It's going to be a really, excellent learning experience. You're going to do great in this role. Okay, terrific. The next one is for secretary. Quick question now. Oh yeah, so it's every year. So I think Christina has gladly accepted taking it on for another year, her last year before her term ends. Anyone? Any questions? Any concerns?
Interesting mind, so. Hands off.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion? Andrew will make a motion. Second, Peter, all in favor? All right, unanimous. Christina. Fired as secretary. Thank you. All right. Okay, and the last one is for treasurer. So as part of our search for the new trustee, we were looking for someone with financial experience and background, and even someone that has served as a treasurer. We've found our candidate, and I did talk with Aaron about this, and Aaron is interested in being the treasurer in addition to being a new trustee. So I think we found our fit. I think it's going to be terrific. Would anyone like to make a motion to nominate Aaron as our next treasurer? Peter Willner?
Okay. I don't think you can either until she's fully sworn in.
Because she's not, yeah.
Okay, then our slate is done.
Chris is interim.
Yeah, Chris-
I mean, I believe that until she's officially approved by the selectmen's office.
I think that's.
Technically, you are correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chris, next month will be
but,
establishing a committee, 2-person committee for finance.
it'll be Andrew's first, responsibility to vote her in.
Yes.
That is-
But I like the idea of a finance committee which has the current treasurer and the past treasurer. I think that's a really good way to kind of
It's a good
How do you
idea.
feel about that, Chris?
pass that information over.
If he doesn't have the, if he doesn't have the ultimate responsibility.
Yeah.
I don't
Well, it's
see-
gonna be a learning curve anyway.
Yeah,
right?
it's good, you know.
To help.
My concern is always just bandwidth, Ryan. Okay.
Oh, God.
5 children.
My children, and I travel a ship a lot for work.
Chris Rogers, I would like to recognize how much we appreciate your help over the last 2 years. You've really gone through a lot with the audit, with Vanguard, with going to custodial, with maintaining everything in your personal life, and then really helping us, with space planning and cutting checks and all that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
We appreciate it. The next treasurer is in good shape. All right. Is there any other new business?
To be clear with that, we had, are we saying interim, or are we just leaving the position vacant?
7. And 6.
Well, yeah, because the first, we're gonna have a July meeting, right? When is the next, we probably. Yeah,
So why don't we do this? Why don't we do this and then, July, August, September, because we don't have something in August, correct?
Yeah, we don't.
So then, September.
So we'll go.
Well, you take the vote in July,
Take the vote in July and then
And then-
hand over in July, September.
in September.
Yeah.
You can have that, yeah.
except for this term says you're through June
30th.
30th. So if we're gonna, right?
Chris, are you good with staying on through?
Yeah, however,
September,
however long
okay.
needed. I mean,
Then,
Do we
then
need
we
to have
we
a-
could keep, we'll make it really simple. I'd like to make a
Yeah.
motion that
Yeah.
Chris Rogers
Stays.
maintains as treasurer for the interim period through the summer until the next trustee is approved by the town and is voted by the board as our next treasurer.
So,
Yeah, that's,
Okay, would someone like to second that motion? Peter, all in favor?
yeah, good.
Okay, it's
Yeah,
approved.
that's good.
Thank you for that.
the bylaws say that the chairman, treasurer, and secretary shall be seated annually at the annual meeting of the board held in the month of July. So I think.
That's one thing we haven't done is the annual meeting in July. I'm not sure which, I'm not,
Meeting every year in July.
we have. I know what's different about that July meeting versus every other meeting.
So
I'll take
at
over.
previous libraries, the annual meeting also invites previous board members.
Oh, okay.
And usually you'll do a little bit of a thing,
Ellen again.
celebratory.
She was ex officio.
We'll invite you, we'll invite you back.
That's
Be
what you're
amazed.
supposed to do.
Let me know how that goes.
Okay.
Platter, some cheese.
See, Andrew, all things that you can put your fingerprint on right away. It's all
We might have government surplus cheese.
The government chief.
Seen our endowment, but I think we can get a little bit.
Maybe you bring us too many ideas from Albany.
It's always good to finish on a Robert's rules. Got me in the end. Is there any other new business? Okay. Let's take a vote on adjourning. Someone like to make a motion for adjourning at 8:33?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
second, Andrew, all in favor of adjourning? All in favor? Sold. Lori, we are adjourning at 8:33.